Donald Trump has mobilized the National Guard in order to take over law enforcement in Washington, D.C. What does this mean for the 2028 presidential election? Yes, I do mean the 2028 election. And it means this: there will be no 2028 election. Am I the only one to think this? Let's listen to California Governor Gavin Newsom.
I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second you want... I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
And you think he's going to run again?
Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house? This is serious, guys. This is serious.
So it'll be Newsom Trump in 28.
No, this guy doesn't believe in free, fair elections. He tried to wreck this country. Were you there, January 6th? I mean, he tried to light democracy on fire. He dialed for 11, almost 12,000 votes. Now he's doing it in plain sight. And people say, oh, it's just Trump being Trump. People actually think this guy's serious about having another election? You think he's joking about 2028? You think when he brings foreign leaders to the Oval Office and he goes to the White House store, have you seen this? Anyone? Is it just me? And he shows them the 2028 hats? He's not being serious? Wake up. You will lose your country. I'm absolutely...
2028.
You've seen it. He's tried to steal the last election. He's trying to rig it in plain sight this time. He wants to get rid of vote by mail. He's talking about eliminating voting machines he doesn't like. He's setting up the contours where he can declare a declaration of emergency for anything. Just cause means whatever he just said on Truth Social. Wake up, everybody. Wake up.
Here is Trump in his White House store brandishing his Trump 2028 hat, which Gavin Newsom was referring to. Welcome to Pillar on Politics, and I'm Bob Pillar. This is the channel that holds at all phenomena, Trump and MAGA, which seems so mysterious to so many, can be explained and readily understood by looking at it through a white Christian nationalist, white supremacist lens. So let's take that lens and focus in. Killing off the 2028 presidential election, many will say, that's not possible. How can that happen when the 22nd and 12th Amendments of the Constitution that say that Donald Trump can no longer remain as president? But as Governor Newsom asks, didn't you see January 6th? One thing we absolutely know about Donald Trump is that once he's in the White House, he will want to stay in the White House. Let us remind ourselves of the lengths that he will go in order to retain power. Trump and his team went into high gear in 2020 to undermine the election result, and Trump claiming the election was stolen and starting the Stop the Steal movement. He pulled out everything, the kitchen sink and maybe even a few kitchen sinks. He tried to pressure the Secretary of State of Georgia to find those infamous 11,000 votes that Trump needed to win. He called in Michigan State Republican lawmakers and tried to get them to overturn the election result. 62 failed legal cases. The Trump team lost every one of them. Trump tried to coerce the Attorney General to declare the election fraudulent, but to his credit, Attorney General Bill Barr said there was no evidence of voter fraud. Sidney Powell, one of Trump's lackeys, led the effort to try to undermine the integrity of the voting machines. Trump tried to recruit the military with the prospect of a military takeover, but the military under General Mark Milley refused. To this day, Trump sees this as a terrible personal betrayal, and this is playing out in Pentagon policy to this day. There was the fake electors scheme. There was the voter recount in Arizona, which actually showed that Joe Biden received somewhat more votes than in the original count. Then there was the John Eastman memo saying that Vice President Mike Pence had the sole constitutional authority to accept or reject electoral college ballots, and Trump put the pressure on for Pence to declare that these ballots were invalid. But to his credit, Pence stood his ground and counted the votes with integrity, announcing Joe Biden as the presidential winner. So Trump had to resort to his MAGA mob, his MAGA crowd, calling them to Washington on January 6th. Be there, will be wild, he said. And they came. And it became wild. Let us remind ourselves just how very special these people were and just how wild it all became.
We need to hold the doors of the Capitol. I need court support. We lost the line. We lost the line. All MPDs get back. All MPDs get back up to the upper deck. All MPDs get back to the upper deck.
They were peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love. The love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Upon regaining the White House, Donald Trump had a very special gift for those very special people who went wild for him on January 6th, saying that he was ending a grave national injustice that had been done to these people. He commuted the sentences of many who were convicted of more serious crimes, but for the vast majority, the hundreds and hundreds, he granted a full, complete, and unconditional pardon. And the message being, it's okay to foment violence against the United States government, provided that it is done on behalf of Donald J. Trump. Yes, 1,000 times yes, Donald Trump wants to be dictator of the United States. While he has used the ballot box to legally, legitimately gain power, he has shown he is completely, absolutely willing to use violence to retain power. And how are the left liberal democratic media sphere addressing this issue of Trump and dictatorship? Here is Jem Psaki, currently a CNN political pundit who was formerly Joe Biden's press secretary.
Bizarre meeting with his cabinet. And during that meeting, he claimed that, quote, a lot of people say, he loves to say that, that's one of his favorite things. Now, he said a lot of people say, in this case, that they want him to be a dictator.
So the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, you know, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. Most people say, if you call him a dictator, that if he stops crime, he can be whatever he wants. I'm not a dictator, by the way.
This is actually the second day in a row that Trump is claiming that, quote, a lot of people are saying they want a dictator. I don't know about you, but I don't know any of those people. In fact, I have to imagine that the group of people that want Trump to be a dictator is actually pretty small, even people who support him.
You say that you don't know a single person who wants Trump to be dictator. Well, let me introduce you to MAGA and millions of people who want exactly that. With every new approval poll, the left liberal Democrat media sphere love to report how Donald Trump is underwater, how his net approval rating is underwater, as underwater is their favorite word, their most joyous word, as if underwater means the imminent end of Donald Trump. What this left liberal Democrat media sphere still do not understand, Trump only plays to his base. Wake up, left liberal democratic media, and take in this one fundamental point. Trump only ever talks to his base. He only ever thinks about his base. He only ever acts for his base. And his base love him for that. So let's look at Trump's favorability among Republicans, and we can see it is a solid 90%. It has been 90% since he became president. It is still 90%. It has not moved. It is solidly 90%. The Republicans and MAGA, they love Trump. They love everything he is doing, and they are unshakable, unbendable in their support. Ms. Psaki, Governor Newsom is talking to you. His admonition to remember January 6th in all its fury is directed to you. As it appears, you have forgotten because you didn't mention it once. The Democrats have to stop democratic weak think. And finally, all these years after Trump came down that escalator, understand Trump MAGA think. Understanding that is the beginning of developing democratic strong think. Finally, with Governor Newsom saying that Trump wants to kill the 2028 presidential elections, there is a major Democratic politician who is using democratic strong think. The starting point is to understand very strongly what MAGA is. It's what I've been saying, and I'll continue to keep on saying it until the Democratic left liberal media sphere understands this to their marrow, that the Trump Republican MAGA party is at its core a white Christian nationalist, white supremacist party with Donald Trump as their white supremacist in chief. Using the analogy, the metaphor of a river with two tributaries, right? White Christian nationalism, white supremacy, based on the southern states as their core, reaching way back into history, has merged, has met with its other tributary, which is Donald Trump, the visceral racist who has extreme personality disorders but uses them in service to MAGA, which MAGA appreciates. And as we know, Trump wants to have dictatorial power, and these two tributaries come together to flow into a mighty river that is dominating American politics. The Trump MAGA Republican Party with Trump as white supremacist in chief, and they love him for it, and they are forever loyal to him for it. They believe that he is right about everything, and they will support him, as we saw, 90% solid support for him. They will support him for dictator because they believe, as all people who pine away for dictatorship believe, that Trump will punish their enemies, and Trump's followers will have as Trump says, America that is great again, because he has dealt with these enemies. So they want this dictator, and they have given him 77.3 million votes in 2024 to become this dictator. And let us note that over 3 elections, Trump has received 215 million votes, by far greatest vote receiver in American history. He is a historical, amazing American political phenomenon. Misaki, you do not seem to know or understand the most fundamental belief of those people who pine away for dictatorship. It's that their dictator will punish their enemies. It is evident, is it not? Trump talks the MAGA talk of the enemies within, of the radical left liberal people who hate the United States, of the communists and socialists who want to destroy America. And all these people, unlike his followers, are not true patriots and real Americans, and we know what he means and who he believes are those real Americans and true patriots, and they are the white Christian nationalists, white supremacists who absolutely believe in him. Most Republicans, which is MAGA, want a Christian nation. They want to see a Christian theocracy. They want a Christian dictatorship where the Bible will rule over the Constitution and will dictate all behavior and norms. White Christian nationalists, white supremacists, and Trump all fly the same flags. And when Trump tells a reporter that he doesn't want to be a dictator, go back to the first political principle that Trump has. He only talks to his base, no matter who asks him the question. So his message to the base is, I will not be a dictator to you. And that's exactly right. He's telling the truth. They are expecting him to be a dictator against their enemies. And in some sense, Trump does not really want to be dictator. As the Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson wrote many years ago during Trump's first term, what Trump really wants to be is to be president of the Confederacy. And this, I think, was the greatest truism, one-sentence truism ever written about Trump. What his MAGA party wants, what they really want, is Jim Crow. Complete white control, complete white supremacy, and suppression of all peoples of color, and of course, particularly black people. Let's listen to Trump addressing his white Christian national base during the 2024 presidential election.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
Trump will fix it so his followers will never have to vote again. How can these people so glibly and absolutely buy into this which goes against every grain that is American democratic political conviction? The path to Democrat strong think is to understand Trump MAGA think, and therefore we have to go into the Trump MAGA brain. We have to have that brain envelop us so we understand the thought process. And this brain is an angry brain, the MAGA rage brain. And the source of this anger, the source of this rage is the white Christian nationalism that hates so much, that is driven, and this white Christian nationalism based on their white Christian Bible is deeply embedded in the most primitive recesses of their brain. And there are two fundamental tenets that they absolutely believe. The first being that Democrats are criminals, hence all the vituperative language about Democrats being evil and hating the country. And from this perspective, from Trump being a dictator, again, MAGA has no problem with that. They see no problem with that. Why? So as Christ is our King in heaven, Trump is on earth. What parliament, what Congress, what judiciary does Christ need to rule as king? He does not need any of that. So that will be true of Trump on earth. Why does he need to have a Congress that might oppose him, or judiciary that tries to restrain him? None of this is necessary. We believe in Christ our King in heaven, and we believe in Trump our King on earth. And the thing that we most expect from Donald Trump is that he will punish the enemies of our Christ. He will punish the enemies of our white Christian nationalist Bible. How will Trump fix it? All his strategies he tried after the 2020 election, even the January 6th mob, failed. He had to leave the White House in probably what was the saddest moment of his life. And he's not going to want to do it again. I think we can predict how the 2028 presidential coup will play out. All the dots are there. We just need to connect the dots. And I think the left liberal democratic media sphere has done an extremely poor job of doing that. Connect the dots and the picture will form. And we will see how the coup will happen.
You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Trump is already hard at work looking to rig the American electoral system to his advantage. But then what would we expect from a man who already in 2016 pathologically claimed that the only way he can lose an election if there were massive voter fraud? And of course, he shined through on this theme in the 2020 election. Trump wants to end mail-in ballots and drop boxes, and research shows that these voting methods are more used by Democrats, and particularly are used in black communities. Then Trump has requested, and Texas came through on his request, to gerrymander 5 more Republican seats, and other Republican states are looking to follow through on this, including Florida and Missouri. But neither of these strategies overcome the big problem that Donald Trump has if he's going to run in 2028, and that is the problem of the 22nd Amendment hurdle. And what Trump wants is what Trump's authoritarian soulmates already have: a loyal, disciplined, and armed guard to further the leader's wishes. Here we see the basis of the fix. Trump's executive order from August 2025 on restoring law and order in the District of Columbia, under the pretext that the nation's capital is under siege from violent crime. But this is not a pretext. Crime is a major MAGA talking point. This was his primary rationale for mobilizing the National Guard. But the most important part of this executive order, the most threatening, the basis of the fix, is Trump's directing his Secretary of Defense to coordinate with state governors to provide additional National Guard units to patrol Washington, D.C. The Washington Post has looked to see where the National Guard is to address the crime issues in the District of Columbia. And as they report, they are finding the National Guard where the tourists are, where the government buildings are, near the Capitol. And that is here. And as we can see, this is among the lowest crime rates in D.C. The high crime rate is south of the Anacostia River. That is southeast Washington there. And it looks like the National Guard is in no position to help the crime rate in D.C. I would say that Cobra Eye King, columnist for the Washington Post, is taking us down the right path when he invokes the spirit of Old Dixie. As we said, the most important thing in Trump's executive order was his directing his Secretary of Defense, the white Christian nationalist, white supremacist supreme Pete Hegseth, to not only mobilize the District of Columbia National Guard, but to augment them by coordinating with state governors, of course, red state governors, of course, Republican governors, and the governors of the following states have agreed to send their National Guard units to Washington. This includes South Carolina, Mississippi, West Virginia, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Ohio. Now, if we just sit back and reflect for a moment, we will see, and reaching deep into American history, and understanding that today's MAGA Republican Party is still fighting the Civil War, thereby forcing the Democrats to have to fight the Civil War, to refight the Civil War. Actually, we never stopped fighting the Civil War. We will see that 5 of these 6 states were originally members of the Confederate States of America. South Carolina, of course, was the first to secede, right? Leading the others. Mississippi followed very quickly. Louisiana, Tennessee, West Virginia, and West Virginia deserves a historical footnote here. It did secede because it was originally part of the state of Virginia, which seceded, and then federal troops drove out Confederate forces and were able to keep West Virginia for the Union, and it became a separate state. However, I think we can very confidently state that today West Virginia is deep red. It is very profoundly pro-Trump, and hence has re-earned its place among the Confederate States. Ohio, a bit of an oddball. A formerly northern Yankee state appears to have slid considerably far south. This strategy is designed not to fail. So moving National Guard units into Washington, D.C. is Trump's fix. So Trump is gathering his red state loyal National Guard, and comes the time in 2028 in order to jump that 22nd Amendment hurdle, Trump will do this. And what we're seeing in Washington today in 2025 is the warm-up, the dress rehearsal, the gathering of red state National Guards that Trump can command. And when he sees the time, he will pull the trigger. And as he promised, his supporters will never have to vote again. And my message to you, Governor Newsom, is that yes, you are absolutely correct to sound the clarion that Trump will scupper the 2028 presidential election. It is clear that Trump will want to explode the U.S. Constitution. Thank you for watching and listening. Again, this is Bob Pillar, and this is Pillar on Politics. Stay tuned for more videos on the lunacy of American politics.